Can you believe I almost skipped Norfolk as a cruise port because I thought small meant boring and limited? I was very wrong. This charming Virginia port gave me one of my favorite cruise experiences, and I'm honestly a little mad at myself for waiting so long to try it. There's something special happening here that the big Florida ports can't match, and I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. I'll also share with you the big Norfolk mistake I made, which left me with a bit of regret and total FOMO. So don't be like me and make the same mistake. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And today we're going to do a deep dive into the Norfolk cruise port. Most US cruisers set sail out of the big home ports like Port Canaveral, Miami, and even Fort Lauderdale. But there are some really charming, smaller home port spots, and Norfolk, Virginia is one of them. Norfolk is one of the East Coast's most notable cruise ports, serving as a home port for cruises to Bermuda, which is where I went on a recent cruise, just got back, the Bahamas, and the Eastern Caribbean. Now, since 2002, Carnival Cruise Line has been the only company to home port ships here, so this is a really small port. Right now, Carnival's Sunshine operates year-round from Norfolk, and I just got back from a cruise on this ship, and I absolutely loved the experience. I loved Bermuda, I loved Norfolk, and I actually liked Carnival Sunshine, even though it is an older ship. But here's something that might surprise you, though. Carnival Sunshine's home port was previously Charleston, South Carolina, and on my cruise, I met a ton of Charlestonians who lamented the fact that they now had to drive to Norfolk, but they were still at least glad that it was within driving distance because the ship moved from Charleston to Norfolk in February of 2025. So this is still pretty fresh, and there is a reason that Carnival made this move that I'll get to in a minute. Now, Norfolk doesn't just serve as a home port for Carnival, though. It regularly appears on cruise itineraries, but as a port of call, drawing ships from Princess, Norwegian, Holland, and even luxury lines like Silversea. Now, here's what makes Norfolk so special. Let me paint you a picture. The Norfolk cruise port operates out of only one main facility, so it's super easy to navigate, embark, and get around. And it's called the Decker Half Moon Cruise Center. It's located right on the downtown waterfront of Norfolk. Now, unlike larger cruise hubs with multiple terminals where you get confused about what terminal you're at, there's thousands of cruisers, different ships, it can be kind of chaotic. Norfolk's setup is really, really simple and easy. It was one of the smoothest embarkation processes I've experienced in my cruise life. Every ship docks at Half Moon, so you don't have to worry about going to the wrong place. But here's where it gets interesting. The terminal is right next to Nauticus, which is a maritime museum and science center that also houses the USS Wisconsin battleship. So when I got off my shuttle, and I'll tell you more about the shuttle process in a minute, I was just in awe at how freaking pretty it was. You've got this huge battleship right here. It's very scenic. There's water. It's just absolutely lovely. And it's just steps from downtown Norfolk where there's tons of restaurants, shops, and waterfront attractions. Now, you won't find sprawling beaches or resorts right at the cruise terminal here, but the setting is pretty hard to beat. I've got to say this is one of the coolest sailaways that I have done. I wish I had more footage of it, but I was doing a Facebook Live and I was just sharing this awesome experience with fellow cruisers, and they were kind of giving me the history of it as we were going along. And a lot of it I didn't know, and I've learned about it since then, and it's really, really neat. As you sail away from Norfolk, you'll get these expansive views of the Elizabeth River. There are Navy ships at what I now know is the world's largest naval base, the Naval Station Norfolk, and the Chesapeake Bay and beyond. If you're taking a cruise from Norfolk, I definitely recommend booking at least an ocean view room, or at the very least, if you like to ball on a budget and you want to stick with an interior, at least head up to the upper decks to watch the sail away. It takes a while to get out, and it's just so relaxing and scenic and beautiful, and it's such unique sights. It's unlike any other sail away that you'll experience, at least for a US domestic home port. Now let's talk about something that initially confused me, but ended up being one of my favorite things about Norfolk. Now, this was a first for me. My first time in Bermuda, my first time out of Norfolk, and my first time driving to a cruise port. I live in the Midwest, specifically in the Cincinnati region, and I decided I was gonna drive for this one. So it was my first time parking, so I didn't know what to expect. So it was a learning process. Now, the parking situation in Norfolk is completely different than other major home ports. So if you're used to parking in the Florida ports or even Galveston, it's a little bit different. But once you understand how it works, you might actually prefer it. Now, here's the thing. The Decker Half Moon Cruise Center doesn't have its own parking garage. There's no lot attached to the terminal, but instead, passengers have to use nearby independent lots that offer shuttle service provided to the port. The primary official option for cruise passengers is called Cedar Grove Parking Lot. It's located at 1000 Monticello Avenue. Now, this is an open-air lot. They do provide complimentary shuttle service to and from the cruise terminal. And these shuttles run on a continuous loop on embarkation and disembarkation days. And they are set up specifically for cruise passengers with luggage. So there's plenty of room in these shuttles for your bags. Now, the ride from Cedar Grove to the Half Moon Terminal, it does take only a few minutes, but you want to allow extra time during peak boarding windows. Now, parking here is secure and managed in partnership with the city of Norfolk, and rates typically run around $15 per day, so for a standard 7-day sailing, you're looking at about $105 total. The lot is uncovered though, so make sure you know that and you take note of the row when you park so you don't get lost coming back, and you realize that there might be outdoor conditions that might affect your car since obviously it's uncovered. But here's where I'm going to save you some money and give you an optional experience that I think is better. And that is a competing lot, which is called asphalt lots. Now it's further away, so you are going to have to take a much longer shuttle ride, but it's also free and it was not a big deal at all in my experience and opinion. And I use this on my sailing and I chose it to be preferable. Here's why I chose it. First, parking in asphalt lots comes at a cheaper price. It's around $10 per day, and those savings can add up. And they also have this loyalty program, so if you're a frequent cruiser, you can sign up and get discounts. Now, I'm not going to cruise out of Norfolk that much because they do have limited itineraries. I loved it, but I probably won't be back for a while, so it doesn't apply to me, but if you sail out of Norfolk a lot, it's something worth looking into. They do frequently run promotions if you do online reservations, but here's the kicker and why I chose asphalt lots. They provide covered parking. I have a newer, more expensive vehicle, and I wanted it to be protected and covered, whereas Cedar Grove is a surface lot. Now, both lots are secure and gated and patrolled, but I liked the fact that this was covered and it was cheaper. And my experience with their parking was flawless. It was super easy. I drove in, they took the payment, you drive in, you drop the bags, someone stays with your bags, unless you're a solo cruiser. You go park, you come back down, and the shuttle is free. It takes you to the cruise terminal. It's super efficient, it's super well run, and they even provided a table with these little free snacks, which I thought was a nice little bonus perk, and they also have a jug of water. So it's little things like that to me that make a difference. Now, as I mentioned, it is further than the official lot. It's about a 20-minute shuttle ride, and when they drop you off at the port, they have a dedicated drop-off spot there at the entrance of Nauticus, and this also serves as the pickup location. So when you disembark, you'll follow the signs for the asphalt lots customers, and you just wait there for them to pick you up. So embarkation and disembarkation was super easy, smooth. I didn't have to wait a very long time at all. So highly recommend asphalt lots. And no, they did not pay me for this, and I get nothing out of it if you book with them. Now let me give you the rundown on Norfolk's cruise setup so you know what you're getting into. The terminal is the Decker Half Moon Cruise Center, and it's the only cruise terminal in Norfolk. Ship-wise, it accommodates one ship at a time, Carnival Sunshine right now, and is primarily used by Carnival, obviously, for seasonal home port sailings. And as mentioned earlier, it does serve as a port of call for other cruise lines. Now, when it comes to the distance from the city center, you're really lucky because this cruise port location is located directly downtown. It's walkable to Nauticus, USS Wisconsin, the Waterside District, restaurants, and shops. So it's really convenient. There's a lot to do right there. The distance to the airport is about 9 miles, which is roughly 20 minutes by car from Norfolk International Airport. The Norfolk Cruise Port address is officially 1 Waterside Drive, Norfolk, Virginia 23510. Now, here's something fascinating about Norfolk's cruise history that explains why this port is so unique today. Norfolk's cruise history began in the mid-1990s when the first ship docked behind Nauticus. By the 2000s, the city had become a seasonal embarkation point, at that time attracting both Royal Caribbean and Carnival, and drawing drive-to cruisers from all across Virginia and the surrounding region. Royal Caribbean left in 2010, leaving Carnival as that mainstay. So for years, sailings to Norfolk were seasonal, with the Half Moon Cruise Center bustling in summer and then pretty dead in the off-season. But that changed in 2025 when a $12 million renovation made way for Carnival Sunshine to home port year-round. And this marked a change from Norfolk from a seasonal stop to a full-fledged year-round home port with steady sailings and a stronger local economic impact. And that's why Carnival moved their ship here, and it's part of what makes Norfolk so exciting right now. Now let's talk about actually getting to Norfolk, because this is where you need to make some strategic decisions. As I mentioned, if you're flying into the port sits about 9 miles from the Norfolk International Airport, or you can drive in like I did. Now, if you are flying in, something I want you to consider is that because ORF is a smaller airport, their fares can run higher than those at the larger East Coast hubs. And nonstop flights are limited. For many travelers like me, again, I'm coming from the Cincinnati area, getting there would have required a pretty expensive flight and a layover. So by the time I accounted for all those things, I decided that even a 10-hour drive, which is what it took me because we made a few side quests and stops, that was worth it to avoid having a layover and paying for an expensive ticket. So because of the lack of direct flight options and the higher cost of fares, if you live within some reasonable proximity of Norfolk, even I would say 10, 12 hours, I think it's worth considering driving as opposed to flying, especially because there are really good parking options, as I mentioned, like asphalt lots. Now, if you are a budget hunter like me and you're bound and determined to fly in, it is worth comparing options at Newport News Williamsburg International Airport, which is about 45 minutes away, or even Richmond International Airport. Now that's much further, it's about an hour and a half away, but if you can save a lot of money and rent a car, it might be worthwhile. These can be practical alternatives, and it can allow you to add a land-based stay, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, which I highly recommend doing. Now, if you do fly, let's talk about the best ways of getting from the airport to the Norfolk Cruise Terminal. Carnival offers transfer service like they do at their other cruise ports. In particular, they offer transfer from ORF Airport to the Half Moon Cruise Center, and that runs around $25 to $30 per person each way. These are your standard big motor coach shuttles. A lot of people are kind of crammed on them, and you can book them directly through the cruise line. They are convenient, especially if you're flying in the morning of your sailing, although that's never a good idea. I'll tell you why in my guide linked below. But another option is independent transfer services. These are also available, and they're usually a little more personalized and flexible, and sometimes even cheaper than cruise line transfer options, especially if you're traveling with a group. Some Norfolk hotels advertise cruise packages that include shuttle service, but this is not very widespread, but I'll tell you about those options in just a moment. Now, always make sure you check the fine print when you're booking anything with a sail and save and cruise or shuttle package, because the cost of the shuttle service can sometimes equate to higher room rates, in which case you're better off just booking a cheaper hotel and taking an Uber anyway. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Other options include rideshare. Uber and Lyft both operate out of the Norfolk International Airport, and fares to the Half Moon Cruise Center typically range from $20 to $30 for an Uber X, depending on demand and surge pricing, with Uber X running a little bit more, obviously. Now, Norfolk does have public transportation. They have a light rail. It's known as the Tide Light Rail, but unfortunately, it does not connect directly to the airport. You would need to transfer to a bus first, then ride the light rail into downtown, and that's often just not practical with cruise luggage. So public transport is not really a great option here, unfortunately. Now, here's where Norfolk really shines and why I think it's better than the megaports. Embarkation in Norfolk is so smooth, specifically because it is a smaller scale. You've got one cruise ship, you've got one cruise terminal. It's pretty simple. And the Half Moon Cruise Center handles only about 50 to 60,000 cruisers per year compared to the millions that flow through Florida's terminals. And that difference makes a big impact. Fewer people, fewer lines, less waiting, less chaos, and a much easier time going from curb to ship. On embarkation day, porters are available just like they are at those mega home ports. They'll be outside the terminal to help you with your luggage. Now, you might notice something slightly different here in terms of setup. In Norfolk, where I was dropped by asphalt lots, again, it was really close for me to walk into the cruise terminal, but the porters actually loaded our bags onto a small box truck. So that was just a little bit different, but our bags made it safe and sound. It's a little bit old school, it works, but it helps keep that curbside area clear because this is, again, part of downtown Norfolk. You can't have a lot of people dropping luggage right there at the curb in the downtown area, clogging up traffic. So you take your luggage in a little bit off the curb, then you give them to the porters that put them in the box trucks and you embark. Still super smooth, super easy, super flawless. So that's what you can expect with embarkation. Now let's talk about getting off the ship. Here's something most people don't think about until they're standing at the terminal with their bags after disembarking the ship. And that is the fact that if your cruise ends in Norfolk and you didn't drive like me, but you've got a late flight out of Norfolk International Airport or one of the other ones I mentioned, you'll quickly notice there's not a lot of dedicated luggage storage facilities at the cruise terminal or around it. Unlike some of the other ports, Norfolk is a smaller operation, and once you disembark, you'll either need to schlep your bags around with you everywhere while you explore, or there are other options to consider. One of the easiest cruise hacks when you have a late return flight home, I do this all the time in Florida. When I fly to Florida, a lot of times my return flight home is late, so I love this little hack. I haven't had to use it in Norfolk because I drove, but this may apply to you. And that is to book a day use room or a day room at a hotel. There are several airport hotels near ORF that participate in day use booking programs, and that gives you access to a hotel room for a day, not for a night. So say you disembark the ship, you're off by 9, 10 a.m. at the latest, you travel to the airport, your flight doesn't go back until like 8 p.m. What do? You have access to a room, you can take a nap, you can take a shower, you can watch a movie or TV, you can chill, you can enjoy Wi-Fi. It's a far better way to spend your afternoon than sitting around in a small airport that's crowded and kind of gross and just sitting there with your luggage. Now, if you'd rather explore downtown after disembarkation, some hotels near the waterfront will hold bags for guests even after you check out. So if you stayed at one of these hotels earlier, you may be able to finagle with them and get them to agree to hold your bag for you after your cruise, so you can wander around on foot around the Waterside District, downtown Norfolk, grab lunch, or tour the USS Wisconsin before heading to the airport. And of course, another option is you just rent a car for the day. And there's a lot to explore here, so I think it's definitely well worth it. Now, speaking of hotels, let's talk about some of the best places in Norfolk to stay either before and or after your cruise. The Norfolk cruise port sits right in the heart of that downtown, and that means there is a ton of lodging options, and they tend to be clustered within a few blocks. Cruisers consistently recommend these 4 hotels on cruise forums as the best pre- and post-cruise stays. What's unique about this cruise port and these hotels is that each of them is actually within walking distance. How cool is that? You check out and you just walk across the street and right there you are at the cruise ship. It's pretty neat. And some offer park and cruise packages with shuttle or valet service for passengers who don't want to walk or maybe have mobility limitations. First up is the Hilton Norfolk, the Main, at 100 East Main Street. Local cruisers on cruise critic forums call this upscale Hilton property the closest hotel to the Half Moon Cruise Center, saying it's just an easy 5-minute downhill walk and it eliminates the need for a shuttle completely, assuming again you don't have mobility issues. The hotel sits at Main and Granby Streets along the downtown waterfront within walking distance of restaurants and attractions. So this is a great choice and it gets you really close to the cruise terminal. Next is the Glass Light Hotel and Gallery at 201 Granby Street. This is a boutique hotel and it's art focused. It's a little bougie. It's directly across the street from the Half Moon Cruise Center like the Hilton, which gives you another easily walkable alternative to the terminal. Glass Light does offer a park and cruise offer that provides valet parking if you're driving there at a discounted price of $20 per day, specifically at the Booth Street Garage. Now, this is one of the few downtown hotel options with a shuttle to the cruise port, although most guests simply walk to the ship. There is no on-site self-parking, so that's important to note as well. The Norfolk Waterside Marriott at 235 East Main Street is recommended by cruisers and locals for its proximity to the port and well-rounded park and cruise package. The hotel's promotion includes an overnight stay, breakfast for 2, complimentary Wi-Fi, and valet parking for 1 car for up to 7 days, which will cover most of the options available from Norfolk. Additional parking days cost $20 per day. Now, Half Moon is a short walk down Main Street, but the hotel also provides a shuttle to the terminal as part of the package. So again, a lot of these hotels offer shuttle as a package, but they don't offer it as a standalone thing. But all of these options are technically walkable to the cruise terminal. Finally, there's the Sheraton Norfolk Waterside Hotel at 777 Waterside Drive. This is a popular choice for cruisers due to its location on the waterfront. It's very scenic, and it's also a short walk from the cruise terminal. The hotel offers pre- and post-cruise packages that include Bonvoy lounge access, breakfast for 2, and valet parking for the duration of the stay. Now, while a regular shuttle to the terminal is not part of this package, groups of 8 or more can arrange transfers through the sales office, but again, it's a convenient stroll to the Half Moon Pier. So you have lots of great hotel options right there at the terminal. They might not be the cheapest, but they're really convenient and you'll save on Uber costs. Now let me tell you where Norfolk really surprised me and why I wish I'd planned differently and the big mistake that I made. Norfolk is super charming. Again, it's this waterfront city. It's very scenic, it's clean, it's safe. It's just absolutely beautiful. I've got to say, I really fell in love with the area and Virginia as a whole. And because the Half Moon Cruise Center is located right in the heart of downtown, you are within walking distance or a short ride to many of the city's top attractions. So let's talk about some of the cool things to see and do. Say you are coming in the night before, which you should before any cruise, and you're staying in a hotel. Right there outside your door, you've got Nauticus and the USS Wisconsin. The Nauticus Maritime Museum is located right next to the cruise terminal. You'll see it right there by the ship, and it's home to the USS Wisconsin, which is one of the largest battleships ever built. Visitors can tour the museum's interactive maritime exhibits and step aboard the historic ship for an experience that is right there. Now, if you're more into food and drink, the Waterside District is Norfolk's dining and entertainment hub. And great news, you're right there. It's located directly across from the Half Moon Cruise Center and right there by all the hotels that I recommended. Here you'll find a lively collection of restaurants, bars, live music venues, things that are perfect for grabbing a meal or a drink before or after your cruise. It's got a really fun vibe and energy that you're not going to get at a lot of the typical cruise port locations that are further away from things like this. Now, if you want to get a little further from port, just about a mile from the port, you'll find the Chrysler Museum of Art. This is one of the region's most celebrated museums, housing an impressive collection of European and American art, contemporary works, and one of the largest glass collections in the United States. Now, what's really cool about this, again, I love to ball on a budget. Admission is free. You can't get any better than that. Another great option to consider is the Norfolk Botanical Garden. This spans 175 acres, and it's a little bit farther out. It's located about 6 miles from downtown, closer to the airport. The grounds feature beautifully landscaped gardens, walking trails, and seasonal exhibits. If you've got extra time before a flight, you've rented the car, you're killing time, this is a really nice, serene, and scenic place to spend your time. Now, the Virginia Zoo is another option. It's just a few miles from the cruise terminal, and it offers a family-friendly outing with more than 700 animals from around the world. It's especially fun if you're traveling with kiddos and you want to squeeze in one more fun activity after your cruise or stop by before. And Town Point Park is a beautiful waterfront green space right next to the cruise terminal. The park frequently hosts things like festivals, concerts, and cultural events, and even on a quiet day, it's just a nice spot for a leisurely stroll. You'll get views of the Elizabeth River and your cruise ship possibly in the background, depending on how long after your cruise you go. Now, here's my one regret when cruising out of Norfolk, and this is a mistake again that I mentioned. I am kicking myself over it. I did not build in an extra day to explore more of Norfolk and Virginia. I'll be honest, I thought small home port, there's not a lot to do. I'm a busy person. I'll drive in, cruise, drive right back home. But driving there, I got a little taste of the state's mix of beauty, history, and variety, and I really wish I had come in earlier or I wish I had stayed another day after. Now, there's a lot to do in Norfolk, but even within a 2-hour drive, there's a lot to do in the state of Virginia, things that looked really intriguing to me that I wish I had time to explore. You can immerse yourself in the American history of colonial Williamsburg. You can tour the cobblestone streets and museums of Richmond, which is Virginia's capital. There's tons of things for nature lovers. There's the dramatic scenery of Natural Bridge, which is one of the state's most iconic landmarks. And let me tell you how beautiful the Blue Ridge Mountains are for hiking. I did have the privilege of driving through them, and it was a gorgeous drive. Whether it's history, culture, or natural stuff, Virginia has a lot to offer, and it's a lot more than you can fit just in a few hours. So I recommend if you're a curious cruiser, especially if you love history and/or nature, build in some extra time, learn from my mistake, and allow time to explore. Finally, let's talk about the food scene, because Norfolk has a surprisingly strong one, and being right on the waterfront means you'll have the best of the pickings from Virginia's best flavors just steps from the cruise terminal. Now, of course, being near the ocean, seafood is at the top of the list, as this region is famous for Chesapeake Bay blue crabs and Virginia oysters, both of which you can try fresh at restaurants right there at the port. You can also head to Saltine inside the Hilton Norfolk the Main across from the terminal if you want a little more fancy experience, including beautifully prepared seafood and raw oysters. Now, raw oysters and seafood, not my cup of tea. So if you want a more casual bite, the Waterside District is packed with options. There's Southern style barbecue, traditional American fare that's really well reviewed. You can try Striper's Waterside for crab cakes and river views. Or get this, Carnival fans, there's even a Guy Fieri smokehouse if you're craving pulled pork or brisket. Very on brand for Carnival cruisers. So you get the Guy's experience on the ship and you can get it off the ship as well. Virginia is known as a state for its country ham and peanuts, and you'll find these little local specialties sprinkled throughout menus downtown and elsewhere. Now, if you want something sweet, stop by Dumars, a Norfolk institution that's a short drive from the port, and they are credited, believe it or not, with inventing the world's first waffle cone. Yes, really. Coffee lovers like me, you can grab a cup at Cure Coffee House. It's a cozy spot in the Freemason district, while beer fans might head to Smart Mouth Brewing Company, one of Norfolk's best local breweries. So Norfolk proved to me that small does not mean boring when it comes to cruise port. I had some stereotypes and some misconceptions going in. I wish I had built more time, and I'm telling you right now, I'm saying it, I gotta come back. So if you cruise from the Norfolk cruise port, what do you think? Let me know in the comments.